What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to Bad Takes in Football. This is your host, Bad Takes. Really excited to hop into today's video, but before I do that, this is a new channel, which means you are new. Please subscribe, like, comment, tell me more about what you're looking for. Really excited to engage with you. I really hope you enjoy today's video. First thing you need to understand about the Buffalo Bills is they have won the AFC East 5 years in a row. Essentially, ever since Tom Brady left the New England Patriots, the Buffalo Bills have owned the AFC East this entire time. They ended last season with a 13-4 record, and seemingly like a deja vu moment, like a bad nightmare. They lost to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship. Really, the one, I guess, shining moment at the end of the season and what they could be proud of at the end of last season is the fact that Josh Allen, the quarterback, did get his first MVP last year and really well deservingly of it. And I'm happy for him and for the Bills for being able to celebrate that. Now, going into this year, I think it's important to mention one thing. It's the fact that the Bills have invested heavily on just maintaining their roster. They invested over $600 million on players this offseason, and that's just to keep the players that they already had on this team, right? So that's a huge investment, and I think it says a lot about where the Bills were and where the Bills are going into this regular season. They already had a lot of the pieces. It's just a matter sometimes of being able to put it all together. They've made some changes and they've added some additional players to help them out this year, namely like Joey Bosa, right? I think Joey Bosa could silently be one of the best additions this offseason. Joey Bosa, he was on the Chargers and he hasn't necessarily lived up to the hype or what people expected, but to me, the biggest reason why Joey Bosa has struggled is the fact that he's always had injuries that he's been dealing with. He's always had, seasons where he's not playing the full year. And I think that's really been the biggest thing that's hampered his productivity. Now, again, the best ability is availability. So Joey Bosa has to be out there and has to be playing in order to have that impact. That's an obvious statement there. To me, I think this could be a really big addition that could help out, the Bills throughout this season. They also added a couple other players, namely like Josh Palmer at wide receiver. And then they drafted, cornerback Maxwell Hairston, who I think had the fastest 40 time in the combine this year. I think he ran like a 4.2 4.40, which is extremely impressive. They added some I would say weight to their defensive line with TJ Sanders at defensive tackle, and then they also got an edge rusher in Landon Jackson. So they definitely added in the draft, and the exciting part about this year is the fact that immediately in the regular season with the Bills, we're getting a rematch of the AFC divisional game against the Baltimore Ravens. So we're going to get to see two MVP quarterbacks to start this season, and that to me is going to be a really exciting game. I'm not going to go too much further into that, but just wanted to point out that that is their first game this season. Another really important aspect to mention when I talk about the Buffalo Bills is the fact that they have the fifth easiest schedule this season. Right? That's a huge factor when it comes to overall success of a team and being able to determine if they're going to be able to make the playoffs. Now the Bills, regardless of their strength of schedule, I think would always be a playoff team. They regularly go up against the Chiefs, they regularly go up against the Ravens, right? Those are constant matchups they see. Like they saw both of those teams last year amongst other playoff teams. But to me, having the fifth easiest schedule for the regular season is going to have a huge impact on this team. When I'm thinking about what this team could do from a regular season perspective, I'm expecting them to at least repeat that record. I have the Buffalo Bills having a 14-3 record to end this regular season. I could very easily see them having a 14-3 record. Would it shock me if instead they went, 13-4 and just repeated what they did last year? No, but to me, I think 14-3 is very achievable for this team, and I see them being really the main Super Bowl contender coming out of the AFC for that Super Bowl. Right? I really think that this could really be the year for the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen. And really for a couple reasons. It's one, the fact that they already had the talent there. The combination to me of Josh Allen and James Cook is a great duo to have in that backfield. A lot of times people don't give credit to Josh Allen for his running ability, but he constantly is leading this team from a rushing perspective, especially when it comes to touchdowns. He is constantly getting into the end zone, whether it's from the pass plays or from run plays. And the fact that they re-signed James Cook, again, Josh Allen coming off of an MVP year, I think this is really going to be a year where you see the Buffalo Bills shine. And another aspect that I really think is important to mention from this perspective is the fact that, they also have probably, in my opinion, the best tight end in the league. I'm a huge believer in Dalton Kincaid. I think Dalton Kincaid with Josh Allen could have one of those Rob Gronkowski, Tom Brady sort of years. I really think this tandem could be the best tandem in the league. A lot of people are probably going to say, like, what about Brock Bowers? Like, Brock Bowers is an amazing receiver, a tight end as well. And I think he is right up there with a Dalton Kincaid. I think one of the biggest differences between Dalton Kincaid and a Brock Bowers is the fact that the Bills have so many more weapons, and if Dalton Kincaid was in the same situation as Brock Bowers, I think you'd be getting the same stats. Like, that's how good I think Dalton Kincaid is. I really do expect the receivers to really step it up for the Bills this year as well. Keon Coleman, I think he's starting to figure this out, right? To me, I think this is the year where he's breaking over 1,000 yards and could have upwards of 10 touchdowns. Like, I know that's a bold prediction for Keon Coleman, but to me, he just has that size. He has the go up and get it ability, right? Catching it at the peak is a huge, I would say, advantage that Keon Coleman has with his size and his hands. And so again, I think this is going to be a year where the Buffalo Bills are going to be in the Super Bowl. Now, who they're up against, we'll talk a little bit more about. But again, the additions that they've made, the fact that they've kept the team where it is, I think is a huge factor for the Buffalo Bills. And then again, just adding little pieces that can help them out, I think is going to be a big factor in the depth of the Bills and being able to maintain, their status throughout the regular season.